is the coverage of Australian sport by these media outlets. Unfortunately, that's also in decline. I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, is that a handball, is it?
Absolutely.
Hospital handball.
100%. You're the media expert, mate.
Well, I would like to think so, considering it's consumed most of my life. I'm just wondering where News Corp's online platforms, be it the Herald Sun and the Daily Telegraph and the Courier Mail and the Adelaide Advertiser and the West Australian, what are they doing with their online component with live sport? Fairfax, through their mastheads, be it the Age or the Sydney Morning Herald or their other state equivalents, are leading News Corp on an online platform as to live scores. Is News Corp trying to send customers to KO and Foxtel in order to buy subscriptions to watch live sport, or is it a case of dropping the ball? Pardon the pun.
Look, it's going to be like, it would make no sense for them not to send them to KO or Foxtel. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, is that their strategy? Nobody knows. In terms of 3 months ago, every person I know would go to the Herald Sun for an AFL story, a tennis story, a basketball story, and even an NRL story in Melbourne. And it would be, Collingwood leads Port Adelaide by 5 points with a quarter to go, or, the Giants are beating the Suns, or Richmond is making an enormous comeback against Hawthorn at the MCG. Now, there is so little live coverage, but is this a strategy by News Corp to send us to KO, to send us to Foxtel, or are we going to the Daily Mail or the Age to get our sport coverage?
Oh, look, they're not going to want to send you to the Daily Mail, but I think they pretty much want you to move to their platforms to get their sport coverage, like their sporting platform, because then it makes their job a lot easier, Tones.
One would think so, Ahmed, but the Herald Sun has been the leader in sports broadcasting publication for eons, for 100 years. Now, we don't go there anymore. People don't trust.
What does that tell you, though? What does that tell you, Tones?
The ever-changing face of media is upon us. Is everything going to go to a subscription model? Maybe it is.
There always has to be some sort of element of free, where the consumer.
Yeah, that's the government rule.
Yeah, where even though that's where the consumer is the actual product. That's what consumers don't understand. What I'd love to see from these media organizations is understanding and learning how to use that data as fuel and power and fire to provide more. At the moment, they're so fixated with their subscriptions that as soon as they have a good story, right, it's guaranteed to be behind a paywall, whether it's $1 or $2, whatever it is, it's going to be behind a paywall. And I get it. They're in the business of making money. I totally get it, right? But don't you sit back and think, why are people tuning out? Why are people moving away, right?
From what to what?
From, let's say, the Herald Sun. Let's say...
Well, maybe Lachlan Murdoch wants to take people away from the online component straight into KO. Look, to be honest, if that's his ploy, I think he needs to be more transparent. Lachlan, tell us. Fox News and Fox Sports in America are enormous. I mean, they've got the NFL. They paid billions for. They even paid for the World Cup.
Well,
but in terms of Australia, I think I would like them to be more transparent and say, this is the model we're looking at, and this is where we're driving our customer base to.
So so people get a bit of an understanding of the magnitude of Fox in the US. The halftime ads that Fox has rights to for this NFL Super Bowl, they run at $6 to $7 million for 30 seconds.
Yes,
$6 to $7 million for 30 seconds. They have sold 74% of that inventory, and the NFL is months away from starting. The Super Bowl's next year.
Yeah, of course. And when you know what, and I'm sure our equivalent, the AFL Grand Final, has extraordinary numbers. Maybe that's something that you and I, no, not to that same equivocation, but you and I have a job to do for our viewers and our listeners. We've got to find out what the AFL equivalent is by our next show.
Yeah. The issue with the AFL is there's not enough emphasis on that halftime show because they're so fixated in having that 2 o'clock time slot when everybody knows the evening time slot is going to get you more TV eyeballs.
No, not necessarily.
Tony, this has been a discussion for donkey years, right?
Yeah, okay. Well,
the AFL Grand Final that happened in Brisbane, nighttime Grand Final,
yep.
Did it break all records or not?
Look, I can't remember from off the top of my head, but I think if you want to make it a twilight game, make it a 3:20 start rather than a 2:30 start. Or
the problem is people work, right? Not everyone has the luxury of what's it called. Most footy fans are average people that work, tradesmen, construction. This whole country's built on bloody construction.
Ahmed, you know as well as I do that the majority of Australia will work in the morning on the Saturday of the grand final for those that have to, and then they'll take the rest of the day off to watch the game. And in terms of, whether it be a night grand final, well, do we have to bring the discussion back to the MCG needs a roof so that we can play open and shut and have the halftime entertainment under a roof with lights and darkness?
What is it? What is the difference if it's open or closed?
Well, if it's closed, then you can have. Well, you know what I'm saying? We should be having international acts, like whether it be, Robbie Williams, he was fantastic, or do we have Def Leppard, or do we have Snoop Dogg? We need to think on a grander scale.
All right, everyone. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you, Tony. Take care, everyone. We'll catch you all next week.
Thanks, Arbor. Another great edition of Raw Sports.